All right, so we've seen keyboard input, which is really easy and super useful, but has some limitations. So, of course, the keyboard is only a binary input, it's either on or off, whereas the mouse offers us a much more gestural, fluid kind of input. I'm using my mouse right now to move this stuff around. And it, of course, also has some limitations. It's less precise and less easy to read than the keyboard. But as we'll see in a sec, it's going to provide some really cool opportunities for us for interactivity. So I've got my canvas kind of set up here. And rather than be a fixed size, I'm going to go with window width and window height. So almost like full screen for this. And that's one of the benefits of using an external editor. I'm not limited to the tiny little window of in the P5JS editor. So you'll also note, of course, that I don't have no loop here because no loop would make draw run once and then stop, and I wouldn't be able to, read changes to the mouse and things like that. But I'm also going to turn off the cursor using the no cursor command, and because we're going to use our mouse to make our, our own cursor, which will be pretty fun. And so that's the easiest way for us to read in the mouse to P5JS. There's two built-in variables, mouseX and mousey, which give us the current position of the mouse on the screen. So I can say, I'm within draw here, I could say fill, 255, no stroke, circle, at mouseX, mousey, and we can make it whatever size. I'm gonna go ahead and save it and refresh my browser. And now we'll see there's no more pointer. If I move back over here, the pointer shows up. But if I'm over here, all I see is this circle. And already, I don't know, I think it's always really fun just to see something show up on screen that interacts with what you're doing. I know it's simple, but it, I don't know, it always makes me really happy. So that's cool. Let's see then other kinds of inputs that we can do with the mouse. Like key pressed, P5JS gives us some built-in functions for mouse pressed. This is when you've clicked. There's mouse released, which is when you let go of the mouse. And then there's mouse dragged. And this is when you've clicked and you're moving the mouse across the screen. And there's lots of things. I'm sure you're already like thinking of ways that we could use these to make stuff show, show up or make drawings. Let's first just do a quick, feedback and make sure everything's working right. So I'm going to put some console.log, click, release, and dragged. Save it. Then in my browser, I'm going to open the console again, and then I'm going to refresh. And now when I click, I know you can't see me clicking, but I clicked, I'm dragging. Now you'll notice it prints a whole bunch of numbers over here. That's what Chrome does. It's to prevent us from seeing that same message 149 times. And then it shows release. So I click, I drag and release, or just click and release, and it shows me that. Great. So it's working. Let's think about what maybe we want to have happen here. I think a first cool thing maybe would be to have the console, or sorry, not the console, the cursor change color when we click and release. So to do that, we will need a global variable, again, kind of like the keyboard input. Let's call it cursor color. And I'm going to set it by default to be white, like this. And then my fill here can be cursor color. And let's just verify that's working. Great. So maybe when the mouse gets pressed, we change cursor color to be, let's see, maybe we can make it red, make it orange, show up nice. And save it and run this here. Now when I click, it changes to orange, but you'll notice it doesn't change back. And if you want to think about why that is, maybe you can pause for a sec. And that's because we never explicitly tell it to change it back. We've changed the cursor color. If we wanted it to reset on release, we could then add it here, like this. Refresh it. Now when I click and release, it changes color. As I click and as I release, it goes back to white. It's pretty cool. We could even make it be a different color while we're dragging it. So we could say cursor color I'm behind my camera here. I'm hoping, let's see, hoping that looks right. No, there we go. Let's try that. So now if I click and release, it sets back. But if I click and now I start to drag, it changes to blue on the screen. Um, yeah, we could also think about other ways of using these numbers to drive changes in our program. So mouse X, mouse Y, these are just numbers. We talked about the map function in the last keyboard example. We could think about mapping something here to mouse X as well. And this is where in your homework, you're really gonna start to go crazy, where I'd like you to try to plug in as many of these things as possible and build these really complex kind of cool visual interactions. So I have cursor color. Let's also do cursor diameter. And we can start this out at 30. And then in here, we could say cursor diameter. And then let's think about how we can change that. So we could say cursor diameter equals map mouse X, which is going to go between 0 and width. And we can make that between, say, 10 and 200. And so now all I'm doing is changing the diameter based on the mouse position. If I refresh this, now I can see my mouse gets bigger, or my cursor, bigger and smaller as I go left to right. We could, what could we do in the Y direction? Maybe we want to create an alpha value as well. So we could do cursor, we'll just call it alpha map mouse Y, which goes from 0 to height. And that alpha is always 0 to 255. And we can actually add it in right here. I think I'm going off script. We'll find out if this works. And no, it's yelling at me. Okay, psych. This would take me a little bit to figure out. I'm not quite sure why this is not working. But this hopefully gives you an idea of some of the ways that you could start using the mouse to make different kinds of things happen. Already, I don't know, I find this pretty satisfying, just being able to click and have it change color or move it around on the screen. So think about, yeah, again, ways you could use this. There's a few other events that are in the reference as well, including the mouse wheel. If you have a mouse with a mouse wheel and double click. So you could think about ways that you could add those here as well to make visual kinds of stuff show up. And in the next example, we're going to look, we also can record the previous mouse position, and we'll see how we can use that to do some drawing of lines and stuff like that.